Heatstroke when marathons turn deadly. The hidden dangers of running in extreme heat. Marathon cancellations. Why even elite athletes can't outrun climate change. These headlines reveal a shocking truth about marathon running that most people never consider. But beyond heatstroke and climate impacts, what other hidden dangers lurk in this popular sport? Why do seemingly healthy runners collapse during races? How does marathon training silently damage your joints? Can pushing your limits actually weaken your immune system? What long-term heart risks do endurance runners face? Are hydration strategies sometimes more harmful than helpful, and could crossing that finish line come at an unexpected cost to your brain health? The human body faces extraordinary stress during marathon running, with joint damage being one of the most common yet overlooked consequences. Every stride generates impact forces equivalent to 3 times your body weight, relentlessly pounding your knees, hips and ankles for hours. Over time, this repetitive trauma wears down cartilage, the natural cushioning between bones, leading to premature osteoarthritis. Many runners mistakenly believe their joint pain is normal training discomfort, when it actually signals irreversible damage. Studies show marathon runners have 60% higher rates of knee osteoarthritis compared to non-runners, with the damage becoming visible on re-scans after just 5 years of regular long-distance running. The cumulative effect of millions of impacts transforms runners' joints. Much like mechanical parts wearing out through overuse, shock absorption systems become compromised as meniscus tissues thin and synovial fluid loses its protective viscosity. Even proper running form cannot prevent this gradual degeneration, only potentially slow its progression. Younger runners often dismiss early warning signs, assuming their bodies will recover completely between training sessions. But the damage compounds silently over years. Orthopedic specialists report seeing marathoners in their 40s with joint deterioration typical of sedentary seniors. Cardiovascular risks represent another hidden danger of marathon running that contradicts popular beliefs about heart health. While moderate exercise benefits the heart, the extreme stress of marathon running can cause temporary heart muscle damage visible through elevated cardiac enzymes. Post-race research indicates this occurs in 40% of marathon finishers, with the effects lasting up to 1 week. More alarmingly, autopsy studies reveal marathon runners often develop patchy myocardial fibrosis, scar tissue in the heart that increases long-term risk of arrhythmias. The combination of prolonged elevated heart rate and dehydration during races creates perfect conditions for these microscopic heart injuries. Marathon training triggers cardiac remodeling, where the heart's chambers enlarge and walls thicken, adaptations that may impair diastolic function. Over time, emergency room data shows marathon events produce spikes in cardiac incidence, including atrial fibrillation and ventricular tachycardia, particularly among middle-aged male runners. These findings challenge the assumption that more running always equals better heart health, suggesting instead a U-shaped relationship, where benefits peak at moderate distances then decline with extreme endurance training. The immune system suffers surprising consequences from marathon training that few athletes anticipate. Intense endurance exercise creates an open window of immune suppression, lasting 3 to 72 hours post-workout, during which infection risk increases dramatically. Marathon runners experience 200% more upper respiratory infections in the week following races compared to non-runners. This occurs because prolonged intense exercise floods the body with stress hormones that temporarily disable key immune cells. The cumulative effect of repeated long runs leaves many endurance athletes in a chronic state of mild immune suppression, making them vulnerable to persistent illnesses. Salivary immunoglobulin A levels, a critical first-line defense against pathogens, remain depressed for days after hard training sessions. Marathoners frequently report never fully recovering between workouts, stuck in cycles of minor illnesses that compromise training quality. This immunological stress combines with sleep disturbances common among serious runners, creating perfect conditions for recurrent infections. Some athletes unknowingly train through low-grade infections, further weakening their immune resilience in a vicious cycle that undermines both health and performance. Hydration strategies during marathons present unexpected dangers that challenge conventional wisdom. Many runners overhydrate following outdated guidelines, leading to potentially fatal hyponatremia. Low blood sodium levels. Medical reports show 15% of marathon medical tent cases involve hyponatremia, with some requiring emergency hospitalization. The condition occurs when runners drink excessive fluids, diluting essential electrolytes, causing brain swelling. Paradoxically, the thirst mechanism, which evolved over millennia, proves more reliable than artificial hydration schedules. Yet most training programs still teach rigid drinking protocols that ignore individual sweat rates and environmental conditions. The hydration pendulum has swung dangerously, from the dehydration fears of past decades to current overhydration epidemics at races. Sodium losses through sweat vary dramatically between individuals, making blanket fluid intake recommendations potentially hazardous. Even sports drinks consumed in excess can precipitate hyponatremia, as their electrolyte content cannot match massive fluid volumes. Some runners consume tragically. Several marathon deaths annually result from this preventable condition, highlighting the critical need for personalized hydration education. Neurological impacts of marathon running remain the least discussed yet potentially most concerning long-term effect. Brain scans reveal marathon runners experience temporary cognitive impairment equivalent to mild dementia immediately after races, lasting up to 8 weeks in some cases. Researchers attribute this to sustained elevated core body temperature during races, which causes neuronal damage and disrupts the blood-brain barrier. Animal studies show repeated exposure to exercise-induced hypothermia leads to cumulative brain changes, including reduced hippocampal volume, the memory center, suggesting possible accelerated brain aging in endurance athletes. The brain literally shrinks temporarily post-marathon, with measured volume reductions up to 6% before gradually recovering. Some neurologists speculate whether decades of marathon training might contribute to earlier onset of neurodegenerative conditions, though long-term studies remain scarce. Cognitive testing shows impaired executive function and memory recall in runners following ultramarathons, raising questions about decision-making capacity during extreme endurance events. The psychological toll of marathon training often goes unrecognized beneath the celebration of finishing lines. Many runners develop exercise addiction, masking as discipline, pushing through injuries and ignoring bodily warnings. This compulsive behavior frequently coexists with eating disorders, particularly in female athletes, where 35% meet criteria for relative energy deficiency in sport. The constant pressure to improve times, coupled with social media showcasing unrealistic achievements, creates a toxic mentality, where runners measure self-worth through Strava stats rather than holistic health. This mindset leads to chronic overtraining syndrome, affecting 20% of serious marathoners, characterized by persistent fatigue, decreased performance, and hormonal imbalances. The marathon culture often glorifies suffering and extreme commitment, creating environments where overtraining becomes normalized. Many runners report losing their intrinsic joy of running as races become stressful obligations rather than celebrations of fitness. Relationships and careers frequently suffer as training demands escalate with each new distance goal. The finish line high becomes increasingly difficult to achieve, requiring ever more extreme challenges, while recovery periods shrink dangerously. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with your friends and family. Thanks a bunch.